All right. So thanks, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Marcos. I'm co-founder of Gnosis Pay, and here to actually share a little bit of our vision, how we see basically the world evolving, utilizing blockchain as the means to serve billions of people out there. Yeah. So we're an ambition to build a borderless banking platform, creating interoperability and composability between tradfi and Web3, making global banking cheaper, faster, and simpler. I know a lot of people in this room will actually think about banking or banker as someone to be far away and not close, but I will give you lots of reasons to think slightly different. So what's the problem? Well, basically, fintechs, traditional ones, have offered siloed, bundled solutions, leveraging old banking systems, while Web3 is essentially evolving, recreating a bunch of things that already exist out there, but then again, having issues to bring users inside. So the way we see the world is, well, banking 1.0 was when bankers decided to increase profitability using the internet, close down branches, and let's start offering services with our, well, online banking, right? So all on profitability. Bank 2.0, though, technologists started to build services or banking services using the banking infrastructure. That's when the neobanks came, and that's how basically we got a lot better front end to do banking. But still, again, your iPhone talking to a 1960 well, mainframe system. But then, what is banking 3.0? Well, in our view, it's the time where we separate banking from bankers. So what does that mean? Well, you are forced today as a regular individual to basically put your funds and all your financial history in the hands of a player that uses that as a leverage to offer you a very profitable business to them. And the moment you want to migrate away, even though regulators pushed open banking and GDPR and many other, well, policies to pressure this data sharing, you still cannot do that. But the Web3 effectively solved this problem, and it's not applying. So if you think about global retail banking, there isn't actually such a thing. You have brands participating in several markets, but with limited operations, because for you to have actually a license, a banking license in every market, it's extremely difficult. And the reason is custody of funds. And the custody of funds, it's effectively the banker side. Whereas what we want to provide is access to funds, and then if the user wants to have control himself, or if he wants to use a service provider, that shouldn't be on the banker side, that should be on the banking side, which is a lot more scalable and solves a lot of economical problems, cost problems, and directly affect GDP. So you can see every neobank trying to do that, but still using the banking license or something equivalent, as well as using the old legacy systems to be plugged in. I give you examples. So Revolut, basically trying to offer services, first getting the e-money license, and then for several years now applying for the banking license in the UK. I don't think they have it, or they're about to have it. I think they got it in Mexico first. So everywhere you go, you basically have all these rules, collaterals, and well, responsibilities that you have to comply in order to touch customers' deposits. Nubank, which is probably less familiar to people in Europe, is the largest neobank in the world. And Nubank is exactly the same as a traditional bank with a very good front end to customers. Now they have 100 million users. But when it comes to cost and offering, still again connected to the legacy system. So in the Web3 side, well, we accelerated a lot of things in the past years. So complex private key management, well, we have passkey solutions. You have smart wallets. You have, well, transaction bundling. You have pay with any asset solutions. So I think we have been evolving quite a lot, but the last mile, which is effectively making no difference between fiat or digital asset, that's where we're actually spending a little bit more time. So in the ideal world of tomorrow, we don't have these two worlds. We have one world utilizing both. The front end of a neobank or maybe a Web3 wallet, but the back end of, like, built on top of blockchain. So banking 3.0, how do we actually build global spending accounts, right? Or current account or checkings account. Depending on the country, you have different definitions. So what is an account? You have money in through transfers. You have the deposits, the balance. And then you have spending card and transfers. One could argue that actually ATM is on the spending card. What's the new core banking? Well, it's a blockchain, native composable. On top, different types of stables or digital assets. I think we're going to start with stables as it's easier for regulators to help. And then smart accounts. And then you have the decentralization of ID, which in my view, it's probably one of the most important aspects to help us push global accounts. So what is already out there? Well, you have Visa Money Send, which exists today. Visa, for those that are not aware, have launched, I think, beginning of this year, USDC settlement. So if you have a USDC product and you transact with the Visa network, you can actually transfer that USDC. Well, there isn't a decentralized provider doing that yet, so we're going to be the first ones. But centralized provider can actually send Visa USDCs, and then Visa settle the payment network with USD subsequently to that, to acquirers and merchants. Then you have Visa multi-currency card, where you basically have a virtual card and a cash withdrawal. This is actually a very important distinction, multi-currency. One of the things that probably most of you are not aware, the cost of a transaction cross-border is extremely high based on fees between the network and the members. So if you are a European customer going to the US, per definition, your bank is going to pay 100 basis points in your transactions in the US. And the merchant is effectively paying for that on the 3%, 4%. When it's a cross-border customer, the fees on the terminal is actually quite high. And the bank also get a lot of money back as interchange, so they have an interest to do this. The moment you have a multi-currency, transactions can be domestic. And domestic in Europe is 20 basis points, FYI. So you have account capabilities, instant payments, you have cash in and cash out, you have personal account numbers. If you are a Gnosis Pay today, we use Monerium IBAN. I think on the next couple of weeks, you're going to have your direct Gnosis Pay IBAN, which means I transfer euros to that IBAN. Those euros become EUROEs. Those EUROEs you can spend in your card. And then once you want to pay a bill that is not with your card, but bank transfer, you send those EUROEs to whoever, and those EUROEs become euros to that person. So you can live fully on chain. Same for the out. You have local bill payments and direct debit, which can be plugged into this. And then you have Web3 capabilities. Of course, I think most of you are aware of this: cross-chain bridges, token swaps, and on-chain transfers. Now, how can we actually put all of this in place? The good news is all of this already exists. Then how do you stitch them together and present to regulators in a way that you can actually make this your next global bank? And why global? Because the data goes with you. Everything that you transact, I know a lot of people talk about privacy on a negative manner, but on the positive side of it, if you are a European citizen now going to live in Asia and you want to open a bank account, all your European history goes away and sits with ING, ABN, you name it, UBS. And the moment you open your account in Asia, you have to start from zero. And who are you? Do you have the funds? And there's all things around your legitimacy. Like, do you exist as a human? And then are you allowed to have access to the financial rails? So all of that goes away the moment we're using blockchain technology. So the good news is we have done this. And if you're a Gnosis Pay customer, you might have not realized, but you are doing banking 3.0, especially if you're a European customer. And we're in a mission to do this globally. So how can we do that fast? So we use some of our examples of global strategy. We're covering now, European Union plus UK, and we want to go to those two destinations to also serve local customers. So that means we have IBANs, we have short code accounts, but we need also PIX-key, and we need an equivalent in the US. We also need access to instant payments. There's also local methods, then the card schemes, and the license. Our job is to make sure that we connect to all this mechanism and process transactions on-chain and use those as on and off-ramp mechanisms for you, basically, to be able to do your global banking without having to tap into the local system yourself. So as a wallet or as a user or as a traditional bank, we can offer you this service. And the funny thing is, the moment we're doing two countries, it's one route. But when we're adding Brazil, it becomes 3 routes. But once you have US with that list, you actually have 6 routes. Then we solve 2 problems. Money remittance, according to World Bank, 95% of all money remittance spend 499 basis points on average. And if you are, and that is if you are sending from a digital instrument to another digital instrument. But if it's like a check or cash, 630 basis points. On top of float, on top of fees, on top of... So insane. So our job is to effectively prepare as much as possible to those countries so we can then launch Gnosis Pay with our partners, wallets, and banks, the next generation banking. So we can't do it all at once. So how do we start? Light touch model. In order for Gnosis Pay to exist in ETH last year, which is now officially 1 year, we had 10 partners. We needed a license to issue cards in the UK, a license to issue cards in Europe. We need a provider of cards, physical ones. We need, well, to be authorized by the principal member of Visa to actually issue the card with them. We needed, I mean, a lot of connections, a processor, and that is what I call light touch, believe it or not. That means you do not have directly, you're not directly connected to anyone, but you can actually stitch all pieces that you need in order to issue a card. Fast forward 1 year, we're granted with a pass to have a license in Portugal. We bought a business in the UK to have a license directly, and we can now start basically making it smoother, the onboarding process, applying the right policies for actually our customer base, which is the crypto native user, so they don't have to go through this KYC that is more standard to traditional players. But as you evolve, we need to conquer the world. And the more we mature, get licenses, ensure that we can offer things to the traditional Web3 players in our community, we can move them to more complex. So instead of having 7,000 limit transactions a day, you can actually have premium customers. You can actually talk about offline transactions. You can talk about credit. And you can actually evolve the services that the Web3 wants to offer. And the same goes here. So less certainty in the US, but there is already the ability to provide bank accounts. So you can have traditional, the experience as bank account, digital asset, card, like you have it in Europe. And potentially in Brazil, going directly with license because of the local market. So this keeps growing. This is our job. So hopefully next EthCC, I'm going to talk about many countries, or not here, but definitely in this layer. And that brought us to the first self-custodial current account or checkings account or spending account out there. You can have multiple types of stables, Euro C, Euro E, GBPE, USDC is going to come soon. Hopefully next month we have, directly USDC, so you don't have to switch anymore. You have your IBANs integrated directly, which I already told you guys. You have an FX that today is the best FX rate compared to any bank out there. So I was put into challenge with Revolut. I won every challenge in every transaction. And we still make money in the transaction, decent money, even though we don't charge any additional fees on top of the transactions. Just because the payment network already provides the merchant discount rate. And if you are set up very lean, there's a lot of basis points out there for you to already tap in and not have to increase the cost of the transaction. And of course, we need to increase the bridging, so on and off ramp become also good in on chain. So where can you find Gnosis Pay? We're live in EA, UK, Switzerland. I've announced 20 days ago, Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, Colombia, Australia, Singapore, Thailand, Japan, and Indonesia. So if you are from any of those countries, you can already request the card. And hopefully we can actually announce more countries in the Americas region before the end of the year. So we have a special edition, and yeah, I think we're basically distributing cards here. If you want to have your card in the Circle booth, so please get it. If you have any other questions for me, happy to answer them. So if we want to transform the world's financial infrastructure, we need to democratize banking worldwide. Thank you. Yes, here first. Or since the microphone is coming from the back, the lady, please.
So you mentioned decentralized KYC and KYT. Can you elaborate a bit more? Is it because of the Monerium providers and so on, or is there more to it that you're decentralizing?
Oh, no. There's nothing to do with Monerium. One of the projects that we have invested is called IDOS from Fractal. So effectively, the idea is you are the holder of your identity, and the business that you want to do business with, you can basically send a token that says you exist, and the things that the business needs from you is validated on that token, but he doesn't get access of your personal data. Only the local regulator and you basically can have access to those credentials, and all the businesses will get is effectively a yes, she exists, and she's allowed to have a card, she's allowed to basically do business with you. So to me, that's actually quite important ingredient.
Super cool. That also works for businesses. So could we use Gnosis Pay, or at least the transaction system for our solar assets that we manage?
Yeah, so you mean corporate cards, or?
Kinda, or the underlying transaction systems that you have.
Yeah, so sorry, now I understand. Not yet. We want to be a platform open for processing in general. So if you want to basically issue your own card, you can actually use our license or have an engagement with us, or you can use somebody else's license and then take the underlying processing from us. So not necessarily you have to be connected with us on both sides. Yeah. So the reason why we're building this inside of Gnosis is because the cost of gas in Gnosis is actually, there. It's actually, well, something that we have control. And the moment this becomes expensive, we can actually launch the layer 2 and then optimize even more the gas costs. It will be situations on different digital assets that will have an impact, especially when you're moving between different networks. But I think this is part of the evolution of the product. We don't have all the answers at this moment. I think on the maturity level, what we're trying to achieve is to ensure that we're connected as much as possible to traditional point of sale. You can basically spend your digital asset in the point of sale. And we see that as the most valuable thing to solve right now. Sorry? Oh, Fractal. Fractal. Yeah. We invested on them actually today. It was announced. Yes, please.
Do you think that you will, at some point, do a credit with collateralized crypto? So, like, you would emit credit. The card would basically be a credit card, and you would keep the crypto as a collateral to ensure that the debt is paid back at some point.
So, sophisticated users can already do that today inside of Gnosis with Aave. So you can actually get.
But you cannot have a line of credit with fiat. You can only have a line of credit with crypto stablecoins.
Well, yeah. So you would basically get your GNO staked, and then that GNO can be borrowed against EUROE, and then that EUROE can go to your card, and you can basically spend that EUROE, and if you don't pay back, then your GNO gets burned, and then you pay the bill. But that's you can already do that today. Can we do that more automatic and easier and simpler? That's not our goal. Our goal is to basically provide the card, and then the Web3 wallet provider of your choice will probably have tons of services in this direction. We want to make sure that these funds can actually float in an easier way out without breaching any regulation. Yes, or here? Yeah, sure, here. And then we go there.
Like, can you get paid directly on the account on Gnosis
Yes.
Pay?
Today I live fully on chain. I get Euroes, or I get euros on my IBAN, and then those euros become Euroes, and then I spend with my card, I transfer, I pay everything from that IBAN.
So it's connected the wallet with the Gnosis Pay account. So can I get paid with crypto?
So we are, and that's the part that's very bad about us. We're not a wallet. So today you do that with Monerium. The guy behind you is the guy responsible for releasing the IBANs connected with the Gnosis Pay card. So you can basically do all on our Gnosis Pay account, web app. It's a web app from Gnosis Pay. But Zeal is also integrating us. Matri, which is a wallet from Gnosis, have already integrated us. So those are wallets that you can probably do in an easier way.
So it's integrated, it's connected somehow? So
it's directly integrated with those guys. It's not open for anyone to integrate yet.
Okay, will I find that information or wallets in the website or somewhere?
Yeah, Zeal, Matri, or Gnosis Pay. It's effectively those right now.
Okay. And in general, you mentioned there is a bank account, right? So you can transfer, once you get the funds there, you can actually make a transfer to another.
When you're European, you can have an IBAN connected to your card. So then once you go through the KYC, that effectively gives you the card and the IBAN. Okay. And then you can do it's very straightforward. You go in, you're going to see like you deposit euros, and then it's going to appear Euro balance. And then you basically have a button to send, a button to receive where it displays your IBAN, and then you have your card, which basically you can just transact and at the point of sale.
And if I may, because I have checked Gnosis Pay a few times, and I'm wondering why it doesn't have a card number, and if there will actually come, and if there are virtual cards actually.
Virtual cards, we fall into a trap because we don't have an app. So Apple Pay, says no initially to companies that do not have an app because they monetize on this. And we basically had to go through the process of manual inserting the card manually in Apple Pay. So this is in our roadmap. We have been dealing with this already for 2 months. We expect in the next months to come. Okay. So digital cards will be available soon. You can use a hack, which is Curve.
Yeah, I read that somewhere in the website.
Yeah, and then you can basically just don't do it cross-border. Otherwise, it's going to cost you a lot. But if you're doing domestic, it's perfect.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Behind you, please.
Thank you. You mentioned that you're using this, you're going like fully on chain, but how do you, because every time you pay with the card, you're essentially selling Euro E. Mm-hmm. So those are taxable events, right?
That's a very big statement.
Even if you do zero
which country?
Value. For me, that's France. I have a Gnosis card, that's my issue. So that's why I'm asking, but...
So it really depends, even for France. Because if you're getting your income after tax deducted, then not. Because you're going from Euro to Euro E, which is a digital money. So it's not crypto.
Okay, so just like Revolut is digital money that you can...
Like every bank ledger displays digital money controlled by the bank.
Okay.
So no, if you're coming on chain to Euro E, you might have a tax event triggered, but that again depends on the country. In Portugal, if you are holding for over a year that digital asset, that's zero. Okay. And you have different ways of looking at it.
So you're saying as long as I'm not doing like Bitcoin to Euro E?
As long as you're not doing it. Even that, depending on the country, is okay.
Okay.
But not sure for France. But yes.
Thank you.
Anyone? I was some hands in the back. Oh yes. Or maybe it was a no. Oh yeah. Sorry.
So I think he may have already asked the question, but you said that you can do IBAN out.
Yeah.
Can you do IBAN in?
Yes.
And can you do whatever they use in the UK?
Yeah. Well, sort code in the UK. The guy behind you as well. Are we going to launch UK together or not? With okay. So no. I always put somebody behind a very good question, just in case. It's called backup.
So I run a US company. I'd love to have a European bank account.
Yeah.
Or really a global bank account, but JP Morgan doesn't offer that.
Yep.
Sorry. World, biggest bank in America can't support it. But like TransferWise kind of does. But like really what I want is one account or maybe two accounts or something like that where I can receive euros, can receive pounds or reals or whatever, and ship it back to me in dollars. Is that something on the roadmap? Is that something that's going to exist in the next 5 or 10 years? Like,
oh no, 5 years? Then I need to suicide. Sorry, has to be a lot before that. So maybe one thing to explain the complexity, because when you separate bankers from banking, effectively this list becomes important. Bankers, JP Morgan, he wants to have your asset where he makes yield and whatever, right? And he only has to basically hold 5% and 95% is going to be floating, so he can have a lot of return on that money. So that list becomes quite important, because the moment you can actually start issuing those IBANs in all those countries, you have money in and you have money out. And then storing that money is if the local country allows you to have, in the US, for instance, USDC or Paxos, PayPal. Is the US allowed traditional user or regular users, Homer Simpsons, to have USDC? The answer is yes. So the faster we can connect, the faster I can give you a US account, European account, UK account, because basically I can just issue those accounts for you, which what does it mean in reality? It means that you have a safe from, called Gnosis safe, so a smart contract account. And then those links are basically dependent on the regulator, local regulator. But the good news is, as a European, you can have a non-resident dollar account in the US. As a US citizen, you're allowed to have a non-resident euro account in Europe. So if I separate bankers from banking, I'm effectively saying I'm going to give PIX keys to Americans, IBANs to Americans, whatever, you name it. Because then whenever you move funds, transaction monitoring, KYC, sanctions, whatever, that's different. Then we're going to check if that fund that you have can be spent in any of those markets. And if you can't, then okay. If not, we don't sanction because we don't touch funds. We just say, your money in Europe, you're not allowed to use it. So you become a lot more lean, a lot less complex. If, let's say, you're sanctioned Russian at this moment, your assets are frozen. In our situation, all countries that allow you to basically have access to the money, you're going to be able to use it. And for the countries that you're not allowed, then you're not going to be able to use it. If all countries in the world said no, then you are effectively holding your funds, but you cannot use it. So it's a different way of thinking.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sir, in the back. Sorry.
Hi. I'm just wondering, are the funds covered by the normal banking guarantees? Like in, I think in the EU, a lot of countries have like 50,000 or 100,000 that's covered.
Yeah, 90, yes. So everyone that holds a license, so for you to basically issue cards, you need to have at minimum an e-money license. And e-money effectively is you're creating digital money, and therefore you should have money against that digital money. So you have insurances for e-money license. Yes, so you have collateral effectively to support those issues.
Another, what happens if something goes wrong on chain, like the chain just goes down?
We need to think about the use case precisely, because you are a bank. The moment you have an IBAN, you're no longer a bank customer, you are the bank. So there are some use cases that it's probably okay to get refunded, but you are your own leverage in most of the cases. So that's why I think what does this solve? It gives optionality for those that really want to have it by themselves. But hopefully, I can very soon announce the first bank that is going to issue cards with us, where every transaction cross-border uses our multi-currency card, which makes at least dollar, euro, pound domestic for the bank holders or bank account holders. And that saves the bank a lot of money, which should save the customer a lot of money. Why do I think we should care? Is because we're bringing more money on chain. More money on chain allows you guys to then offer, hey, why are you using the bank if I can actually offer you something much better, much nicer? And I think that's the step. It's like VoIP was implemented by Skype. Who knows Skype these days, right? And Skype in, Skype out, buying credits, buying a landline in another country. Exactly the same concept, same thinking. We changed the banking infrastructure from 59 without basically having to explain to the customers what that means. It's like you having access to internet without having to learn TCP/IP. It's kind of all the same logic. More questions? Yes, we have two here.
How do you feel about the adoption of Gnosis Pay so far? You know, any comments there?
Yep.
You know, looking at the charts on Dune, seems to be up and to the right. You know, curious if that reflects, you know, does everyone who's signed up for a card today have them already, or is there a lag in that?
Super nice question. A lot of good surprises. We are pushing a lot of the cards in Europe. So in my view, we should have more Europeans already than we have. Dune is not truly correct. It's about 30% wrong in general. But the cool thing is, it actually shows a lot of data that the industry should look into it. And transactions per day, average transaction size, you know, like an active customer. So a lot of people get the card. Over 60% use the card frequently. 30% use more than 28 times in a month. So almost one transactions per day, with an average of 58 euros. Our business plan was calculated on 17 transactions a month and 35 euros average transaction. So lots of good surprises. A lot of guys trying to make transactions of 20,000, 15,000. legit users, not scam. So I think there are lots of things that we are learning from it, which we, for instance, are going to accelerate the premium cards, the black, the platinums, and so on. A lot of people talking about rewards. So you have a card that doesn't give any incentives. I think Nose has already announced we're going to have GNOs against transactions to stimulate people to use the card, up to 4% cash back on GNO. So I think we're going to do a lot of things in that sense. But in my view, and openly talking about it, I truly don't care about those numbers yet. In my view, we're testing everything around the product and the technology in many use cases. So I think that's what I'm truly worried about it now. Is it more secure than the traditional payment ecosystem? And so far, it's proven yes. So far, it's proven a lot faster, and in at least 27% of the cases, almost 100x cheaper, which is ideal than a traditional payment. I'm getting signs for stop. Guys, thank you so much.